President Obama says he wants to close tax breaks as part of any balanced budget deal. One that tops the list, carried interest. In an interview with CBS News right before the Super Bowl, he signaled out this tax rate, one used by many private equity managers.
The average person doesn't have access to Cayman Island accounts. The average person doesn't have access to carried interest income, where they end up paying a much lower rate on billions of dollars that they've earned. And so we just want to make sure that the whole system is fair.
Washington correspondent Peter Cook on Capitol Hill right now with one of the most important members of Congress when it comes to tax reform, Congressman Levin, the top Democrat on the House Ways and Means Committee. Peter, over to you both.
Deirdre, thanks very much. Joined here by Congressman Levin. Thank you for the time.
Glad to be with you again.
President sent a pretty clear message on the issue of carried interest. This thing is going away in terms of the preferred tax rate for carried interest. That's something you've been pushing for a long time. Is that the message to the private equity industry? Get ready for change?
Yes, and I think it should participate with us in designing it. I think stonewalling won't work. You know, we tax labor and capital differently, and that's really the basic issue. And so I think instead of saying no way, I think really we need to sit down and design it the most effectively we can.
Right now, the tax rate is the capital gains rate, and of course that was elevated as a result of the tax deal at the end of the year. Your push would still be, and the president's push apparently would be again to treat it as ordinary income. Is that the change that you would be pushing for?
Yes. Yes. And we're willing to look at issues like goodwill when there's a sale of a management interest. But basically, this is the issue that the president was referring to. When people work, they provide labor. They could be writing a book and never know they're going to sell it. So they put their labor into it. In this case, they're putting labor. They're managing other people's money. So why should they get a capital gains rate when people who also risk their time pay ordinary income tax if it reaps benefits? That's the basic issue. It's, I think, as the president made clear, inescapable.
Let me ask you, I want to get your reaction. We've got one of the big players in the private equity industry was on Bloomberg recently talking about this issue and said basically what we're talking about here is not a lot of money. I want you to hear David Rubenstein of the Carlyle Group.
We shouldn't do some things that are going to make people feel good but not necessarily help our economy all that much. And this isn't really going to help our economy because it doesn't pick up very much revenue.
Your take on that? This is not a lot of money. The estimates are $16 billion over 10 years, maybe.
Right. First of all, that's a lot of money. Secondly, there's a matter of fairness. And you need to redesign the tax code with equity in mind. And so I said to Mr. Rubenstein, why should someone who is managing other people's money, why should you pay a capital gain when everybody else who is laboring has to pay ordinary income tax? I think that's the basic issue, equity. And if we just set aside equity and say, okay, let people who are managing other people's money pay a capital gain, what do you say to everybody else who is laboring? What do you say to the person who has a stock option and when exercised, they pay ordinary tax? So it isn't only a question of how much money, it's how much equity.
What's your take going forward right here about the sequester set to kick in on March 1st, the threat to the economy posed by that? Are House Democrats prepared to sit down with House Republicans and come up with an alternative plan that would, again, keep those cuts in place in terms of the size of the cuts, but find them from other places?
The answer is yes. I think the sequester remains a very risky proposition. I think it would be best to avoid it. And when the Republicans came from their retreat and they said, well, let it happen, I think that was a mistake. Because, look, the last quarter showed some impact, for example, in the defense industry. What will it be like if we do nothing? I think it's playing with our nation's economy. We shouldn't do that.
What are the chances right now that it does happen?
Look, I didn't bet on the Super Bowl. I probably would have lost. I don't think I would bet on this. I think it's 50-50. That sounds political, but I think it's reality. My guess is this: the closer we get to it, the more hesitation there'll be to let it happen.
All right, Senator Levin, he's a Democrat from Michigan, the top Democrat on the House Ways and Means Committee. Deirdre, the message to private equity players on carried interest, certainly from Democrats, is don't count on that preferred tax rate for much longer.
Peter, thank you so much. Our chief Washington correspondent, Peter Cook, as you can see there, live on Capitol Hill with Representative Levin.